The most powerful empire on earth was paying protection money to a man who lived in a tent. The Emperor of Rome, master of legions, ruler of millions, was writing checks to a nomad from the steppes just to keep him away, and the nomad kept asking for more. That's not a war story, that's a power story, and it starts with one man who figured out something Rome never did. Fear is cheaper than an army. Drawn from history. The Huns didn't arrive, they erupted out of the eastern steppes, moving faster than anything the ancient world had seen. No supply wagons slowing them down, no heavy infantry standing in neat formations, just horsemen, thousands of them, fluid and relentless, covering ground at a pace that made Roman scouting reports useless by the time they arrived. You didn't prepare for the Huns, you just burned. The Germanic tribes in their path, Goths, Vandals, Burgundians, didn't stand and fight. They ran west into Roman territory. Hundreds of thousands of displaced people pouring across the borders, destabilizing provinces Rome had held for centuries. And the Huns hadn't even reached Rome yet. That was only the beginning. Attila was born into this storm, somewhere between 395 and 406 AD. Historians still argue the exact date, which tells you how chaotic this world was. His father Munzuk was brother to the Hun leaders, so from day one Attila grew up watching power up close, how it worked, how it was lost, how it was kept. He trained like every Hun warrior, horses before he could barely walk, archery, the lasso, combat. But then Rome did something that would come back to haunt them. They invited him in. As a young man, Attila was sent to the Roman court as a diplomatic hostage, a common arrangement meant to build trust and loyalty. Rome thought they were taming him, showing him civilization, pulling him into their orbit. What actually happened was Attila spent years studying Rome from the inside. He learned Latin. He watched the politics, the pressure points, the cracks in the system. He went back to the steppes knowing his enemy better than his enemy knew himself. Rome handed him the blueprint, and he used every page of it. In 434 AD, Attila and his brother Bleda took control of the Huns. Their first order of business, renegotiate everything. The meeting happened at Margus, a flat stretch of land near modern-day Belgrade. Both sides arrived on horseback. The Roman envoys expected to dismount, to sit, to conduct business in the civilized Roman way. Attila refused to get off his horse. He conducted the entire negotiation from the saddle, and the Romans, representing the most powerful empire in history, complied. That was the tone, set before a single word was spoken. The Treaty of Margus came out of that meeting. Rome agreed to double their annual tribute to 700 pounds of gold. They agreed to exclusive trade with the Huns. They agreed to return every refugee who had crossed into Roman territory. Two of those refugees were Attila's own blood relatives, men who could challenge his claim to leadership. Rome handed them back. Attila had them executed. He used a peace treaty to eliminate his rivals. Think about that. His first major diplomatic act was also a political assassination, all perfectly legal, all done with Roman cooperation. That tells you everything about the kind of mind you're dealing with. Now here's the scene nobody talks about enough. A formal banquet. Roman diplomats, dressed in their finest, seated at a table loaded with silver platters and golden goblets. They've traveled far to impress this man, to show him the wealth and refinement of Rome. Attila walks in, plain clothes, no gold on his sword, no jewels on his boots, no ornamentation anywhere. He sits at the head of the table and eats plain meat from a wooden plate, drinks from a wooden cup. The Romans stare. These are men who measure power in treasure, in marble and silk and gold leaf. And here's the most feared man in the world, eating like a shepherd while they drink from cups worth more than most people earn in a year. He didn't need the display. That was the point. He was showing them, without saying a word, that his power didn't come from the things they understood. It came from somewhere else entirely. Then his youngest son walked into the room. Everything changed. The fierceness dropped from Attila's face like a mask. He pulled the boy close, held him, looked at him with something that looked almost like softness. The Romans watching didn't know what to do with that. They'd come expecting a monster. they found something far more dangerous. A man completely in control of every version of himself. By 441, the patience was gone. Attila and Bleda launched into the Balkans with something nobody expected: siege weapons. The Huns had learned: battering rams, siege towers. They weren't just raiders sweeping through open land anymore. They could crack fortified cities open like eggs, and they did. Entire cities, erased, not damaged, not looted and left standing, gone. Some of them so completely destroyed that archaeologists today still cannot find where they stood. The Huns swept through the Balkans like fire through dry grass, getting within 20 miles of Constantinople itself before the city's legendary walls finally stopped them. Theodosius recalled his armies. He paid. He paid triple the previous tribute this time. Then Bleda died. Exactly how, nobody knows. Some sources hint at Attila. Nothing confirmed. What's certain is that after Bleda was gone, Attila moved without hesitation and without compromise. No more co-regent, no more sharing. One ruler, one will, one direction, west. In 450 AD, a letter arrived from an unexpected source. Honoria, sister of Western Roman Emperor Valentinian III, was being forced into a political marriage she despised. In desperation, she sent Attila her ring and a plea for help. Attila interpreted it as a marriage proposal. His demanded dowry? Half of the Western Roman Empire. Was it a genuine legal claim or an excuse to march? Probably both. He'd been looking west anyway. In 451, his army crossed into Gaul, modern France, and the destruction began. Cities burned, Metz fell, the countryside emptied. The Roman general Flavius Aetius, a man who had actually lived among the Huns as a young man, who knew Attila personally, scrambled to build a coalition. He did something Rome almost never did willingly. He allied with the Visigoths. The armies met at the Catalaunian plains, one of the bloodiest single-day battles the ancient world had ever seen. The Visigoth king Theodoric died in the fighting. Tens of thousands fell on both sides. The fields were soaked. When the dust cleared, nobody was entirely sure who had won. Attila retreated, but Aetius didn't pursue him, not out of weakness, because he understood something cold and precise. A destroyed Attila was almost as dangerous as a living one. If the Visigoths annihilated the Huns here, they'd be standing in the heart of Roman territory with nothing left to fight. Attila survived because his enemy was too smart to finish him. That was only round one. He came back the following year. Italy. His army swept through the Po Valley, like a blade. Aquileia, one of the most important Roman cities in the region, was hit first. It burned so completely, so thoroughly, that today's archaeologists cannot locate its original site with certainty. The few survivors fled to the surrounding marshes. That community, people running from Attila, Stikidigo, eventually became Venice. The most beautiful city in Italy was built by refugees. Rome was within reach now. Valentinian had already fled. The city sat essentially undefended, and then Pope Leo I rode out alone to meet him. At the River Mincio, the leader of the Catholic Church stood in front of the most feared man alive and asked him to stop. What was said between them? Nobody recorded it. The church version involves divine intervention. The practical version probably involves famine spreading through the Hunnic camp, disease moving through the ranks, supply lines stretched past breaking, and news arriving that Emperor Marcian had crossed the Danube and was hitting Hunnic territory while Attila was busy in Italy. Maybe Leo's words moved him. Maybe the logistics did. Either way, Attila turned around. He took his treasure and went home, and he was already planning his next campaign, Constantinople, when the night of his wedding changed everything. 453 AD, Attila married a young woman named Ildiko. The celebration was massive. He ate more than usual, drank more than usual. That night he suffered a catastrophic hemorrhage, a nosebleed that wouldn't stop, or internal bleeding from years of hard living finally catching up. His new bride found him dead in the morning, the man who had made emperors pay tribute, who had burned a path from the steppes to the walls of Rome, who had reshaped a continent, dead in his bed on his wedding night. His men buried him somewhere in the Hungarian plain. They reportedly diverted a river, placed him in the dry bed with his treasure, then restored the water. Everyone who dug the grave was executed afterward. His tomb has never been found. Within a year, the empire was gone. His sons divided it, argued over it, and destroyed it. The tribes that had trembled at his name stopped trembling. The whole structure, built on one man's will, one man's reputation, one man's ability to make everyone around him afraid, collapsed without him. But here's what nobody could undo. Every tribe he had pushed westward kept moving. The Goths, the Vandals, the Franks. They poured into a Western Roman Empire that was already cracking. 20 years after Attila died, Rome fell. The medieval world that rose from those ashes, the nations, the borders, the cities of modern Europe, was shaped by populations that had been running from one man for decades. Paris, Budapest, Vienna, Venice, all of it, in some way, downstream from Attila. He never conquered Rome. He didn't need to. He just had to frighten the world hard enough, long enough, for the world to rearrange itself around the fear. It did. And it never fully rearranged back. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and leave a like. You can also write in the comments which historical topics you'd like to see next. See you in the next video.